Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here. First of all, you know that conservation agriculture needs to have world initiatives to spread the adoption all around the world. So first of all, we are going to listen to Amir, that he's going to give us a world vision about the about advancing of conservation agriculture all around the world. Thank you, Amir. You can go there. You are going to have less bright.
Thank you, Pilu. I must admit that I found it difficult to interpret the theme of this session and did ask Pilu 2 or 3 times, what is it that we are trying to do in this session? Anyway, I finally got down to work last night after midnight and did decide to ask the basic question. So how do I get down? Does it move forward? Oh, okay. We move. I asked myself a question, has there really been a world initiative, a real world initiative on sustainable agriculture? Or have there been more than one world initiative? And I will present, therefore, a personal view of what I really think the world has been doing in terms of sustainable agriculture. And so I could basically just spend 2 seconds and say, no, are there or have there been on any global initiatives on agriculture? My answer is no, there aren't any, except what we're doing. And why do I say so? So I'll go through that. And then the search for sustainability and for sustainable agriculture. I want to speak about that a little bit. It's not a recent concern. The first conference, UN conference on sustainable use of natural resources was held in 1949. Yeah, and we've been searching since then. And thirdly, I would like to look at the SEA movement itself as the world initiative, as the global initiative on sustainable agriculture. So, what evidence I'm using to say no, there haven't been real world initiatives? We can only look at this slide and 1 or 2 things in it. This is a 1990 updated in 2000 Glassford map of degradation, essentially map of agricultural land degradation. Yeah, and this shows that just about everywhere where we practice agriculture, we degrade. And a lot of area is severely degraded, and that was confirmed by a well-researched book by David Montgomery in 2007, that we've been doing this for many, many years. But worse still, when the 2005 Millennium Ecosystem Study was conducted over 5 years, it was a big study, it discovered it's not just agricultural land is degraded, but we are degrading the whole ecosystem, and only 11% of our ecosystems are in reasonable state. The rest are severely degraded. And in the meantime, we have lost 400 to 500 million hectares of essentially agricultural land. We've actually abandoned it, and it does not appear in our agricultural statistics. So if the world was really concerned and is running a world initiative, you would expect these figures to be out there in the front, telling us, careful, we're losing it. But we're not getting those figures in front of us. And these days we are told that agricultural land is not expanding. And the same source tells us that we are abandoning about 7 to 12 billion hectares a year. You can't have it both ways. That area is being dumped into the marginal and less suitable class, and we show the net area under use. So we're basically got a situation against which we are saying we are modernizing, we are advancing, and we know these pictures from so many people have been presenting these. But on the right corner is Lake Malawi. And there has been 100 years of association between Europe and Malawi in southern Africa. And this sort of thing continues in Africa. So science from even Europe and North somehow doesn't seem to be doing anything serious, because this thing shouldn't be allowed. But this is just a little lake, Lake Malawi. We saw these kinds of pictures here in the Parana Basin, and that was happening. Of course, something has happened here, because good action was the response, and they have cleaned up the waters. This is just outside Reading University. I was sitting there having lunch one day, not very long ago, 2013. I had just taught a course on conservation agriculture, and the River Loddon was laden with silt and mud. And this river is it is in the Thames Valley. So it feeds into River Thames. The other one is River Tiber, and I can tell you a long story about that, what's happening. These are recent pictures. And that River Loddon feeds into River Thames. You all know River Thames, don't you? Because it passes by the House of Parliament. And they have other business to discuss instead of worrying about why that mud is getting into their water. And when you look at UK, this is a picture of UK 3 years ago in February. It's a Google image from an article appeared in Guardian, and it said, sediment plumes, and this is Britain. This is not some Bongo land. This is United Kingdom. And you can see the sediment coming out of River Severn, River Thames. These are plumes coming out. And when you look at it closely, you will see it comes out from agricultural land. That is topsoil moving with organisms, fertilizer, pesticide, and the lot. So, and of course, the sediment itself. And a cabinet report. I'm just trying to show that not only the problem is global, but we haven't come to grips with it anywhere really, essentially, but except in some areas. And this is a cabinet report done by this is the United Kingdom cabinet report under Sir Donald Curry, a policy commission report, and it says, farming and food industry is on an unsustainable course in economic terms. We believe it is also unsustainable environmentally. In the last 50 years, soil organic content has declined. And it says agriculture is now the #1 polluter of water in the country. Not any country, United Kingdom. Land use changes have contributed to increased danger of extreme flood events affecting thousands of homes, and we know the rest of the story. But this is happening in the United Kingdom, and you heard from Gottlieb Basch, yields have stagnated in Europe for the last 20, 25 years, cereal yields. So what has happened essentially is the recognition that tillage, the modern tillage agriculture, basically eventually leads to, for the crop and society, higher production costs, lower farm productivity and profit, suboptimal yield ceilings, poor resilience, and for the landscape, dysfunctional ecosystem, loss of biodiversity, degraded ecosystem services, all the services, water, carbon, nutrient cycle, everything goes to pieces. And you lose carrying capacity of livestock and human carrying capacity. And this is the so-called intrusive intensification, all began after World War II earnestly. And I think, I don't want to be unkind, but most scientists Most scientists want to take credit for this shift into intensive agriculture, the modern agriculture, and it was not science-driven, I'm afraid. The shift into intensive agriculture was not really science-driven. At the end of the war, we had weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons of mass destruction, explosive, phosphorus explosive, nitrate explosive, ammonium explosive, and we had armored vehicles with big motors. And all that went into essentially agricultural industry. So I can tell you there's enough to write 10 books about how we actually got onto the modern pathway. So the second area which I want to talk about is the search for sustainable development. Now you might say that, well, those are the world initiatives. 49, the first UN conference on efficient use of natural resources. In 72, we have the UN Conference on Human Environment, and it, for the first time, established a relationship between economic development and degradation. And it put it on the international agenda, and a few years later, the first UN conference on environment and development was moved forward, and we had a few years later the UN Commission, which established the Brundtland Commission, or what we refer to as Brundtland Commission, Goaverts as its head. And in 1987, we had the report of that commission called Our Common Future, with a definition which we all keep using, well-quoted definition, that what we do now shouldn't affect the future. Very good. Unfortunately, none of this effort came up with any practical action. Absolutely very little. Now, I wouldn't have been able to say this 30 years ago, but now, as I reach my 90th year of my life, I really would like to say something, that these conferences were talk shops, and they continue today. And what happened? We arrived at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Summit, Earth Summit, with heads of states coming to Brazil. Yeah, okay, 4 minutes. And we decided that to do something about it, we set up 3 conventions on climate change, biodiversity, and protecting dryland, or protecting land from degradation. And after that, we developed the Millennium Development Goals. And last year, we now have Sustainable Development Goals. I'm afraid I do not regard any one of them as a contribution to sustainable agriculture. And in fact, some of them just mention sustainable agriculture. It does not say how you're going to harness sustainable agriculture. Right, so, and we, in recent years, in 2008, we had the IASTAD report, World Bank, World Development Report. They basically at least said, business as usual cannot continue. But they did not really come up with what should it replace it. And we then had, in the UK, the Royal Society published a report, Reaping the Benefit, and they brought in the term sustainable intensification. Again, they did not really offer a solution. How do you harness it? And that was followed by the Foresight report, The Future of Food and Farming, same situation. These are global reports, but no real recommendation to the development community about how do you actually action all that to capture sustainable land management, agricultural land management. And in 2011, FAO produced its Food and Save and Grow philosophy, and that is the first time a global institution placed conservation agriculture at the core of sustainable intensification and sustainable production. And it identified few parameters and defined it what we mean by that. Okay, but in the meantime, this is the third part of my presentation. In the meantime, we have been looking at all the things which have been happening to farmers. And you heard just now what farmers were facing and what they did. And all these things eventually led to our movement on CA. And it is really not connected, because when the heads of states came to Brazil, you think that Agenda 21 would have conservation agriculture plastered everywhere. No, it wasn't even mentioned. But this is the movement which I would like to basically say to you is the global world movement which is moving. And it is not moving uniformly. If there was a global world movement, it would be moving more uniformly, but it isn't. It is moving depending on where the champions are, historical background, and so forth. And one or two slides more. In 2001, we had, as a result of the CA, we are seeing national and regional institutions on CA. We had 2001 CA World Congress process established by FAO, and with the help of ECAF, we had the first Congress. To me, that is the start, real start of the world movement on sustainable agriculture. And this was followed by 2008, 2009, by establishing, based on a meeting, establishing the CA community of practice with a platform. And now in 2015, we basically, co-partners are now establishing global network, CA network called GCAN. And Pilu knows all about it. And this is, the objective is to mainstream CA in the future and integrate CA and put it at the center of global sustainable agriculture and land use agenda. This, to me, is the real world initiative for sustainable agriculture, which is now establishing, and we are all helping to do so. I think, Madam Chairman, this is where I would like to leave my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amir, for clarifying the situation all around the world and to encourage us to go on with this initiative, with this conviction. And now we are going to listen to Ricardo. Ricardo Ralich is going to tell us about the initiative of the government in Brazil.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to be here. So, I am here, Ricardo Ralich, replacing Elvison Ramos, is the coordinator of this program that I will show you. But I am linked a little bit in our agricultural ministry because I am a member of this kind of chamber of sustainable agriculture and irrigation, and I am now the president of this chamber, so I can give a little bit information about this program. So the idea is to show you a strategy that we are using in Brazil to increase quality in agricultural activity, and how and why we are doing that in Brazilian conditions. So it's only to remember a little bit about Brazil, where is and what is Brazil in South America. But the most important thing that I would like to show you is that we are growing and we are increasing the agricultural activity in Brazil, protecting the environment and protecting the forest. This picture here shows you that we have less than 30% of the lands using for agricultural activity. We have more than 60% of lands in forest protections. 11% of this are inside the farms. We have a law. We have a forest law. All the farmers need to protect at least 20% in native vegetation and forest, at least, because we need to protect also rivers and other things, other geographic situations, the forest. That means that we have less than all the farms to produce. We have another Brazilian conditions that's very important. We have a high percent of family activities there, and we need to keep this. We need to keep all the family farmers. It's a social objective. We need to keep, to protect. So, And we have another scenario that we need to consider. This kind of scenario, we are talking about a possibility that Brazil will be the most important, the biggest producer, agricultural producer in the world. So we need to make this, to protect the forest, we need to protect the social aspects, and we need to increase agricultural activity. How to do that? So one of these strategies is this one, is the ABC plan. ABC plan is one strategy of the Agricultural Ministry of Brazil. The ABC means in English, the low carbon agriculture. So the ABC plan was born in Copenhagen, 2009, was a voluntary commitment of Brazilian government to reduce carbon emission for all the country. Based in what? To reduce until 2020, to reduce the baseline of 2009 in more than 30% of emission. How? With agricultural activity. Changing process of agricultural activity, helping the farmers to do what they know to do. Helping the farmers to do the best. That's the idea of this plan, ABC plan. So, to reduce soil degradation, to change the emissions of all activities, etc., and how the plan works. The plan works working in 6 lines, recovering degraded pastures. This means area, the goals of area, hectares, million of hectares for last year, 2 years ago, and for until 2020. We are talking about this kind of level of area to protect and to develop. How? Giving money, credit. The idea is to give credit to help the farmers to do that. I said that we have 6, but here we have 5. We have one here is no tillage system increasing. The idea is to increase no tillage system. Why system? It's the base, the conceptual base of conservation agriculture. Need to be a system, a production system with crop rotation. The most important thing is the crop rotation. So the idea is to increase 8 million hectares until 2020 in good no-till system. That's the proposal of the ABC plan, and is working for that. Is working to help the people to make the best, and to change the image and the reality, and increasing good landscape in agricultural activity, and is working for that. Protecting the low power agriculture also, so the family farmers, to introduce technologies. We have a lot of people here that worked a lot for this in our team here. We have a lot of people showing for you in presentations for yesterday, and we'll show today also how we can do the best with rotation, crop rotation, etc., etc. So the ABC plan is helping to have a little bit money to look for these solutions in Brazilian conditions. This kind of landscape to favorize the construction of terraces to reduce runoff, etc., and to reduce the soil erosion. Side by side, the no-till system to favorize the erosion control. This kind of landscape and image to protect all the water runoff in the soil. to protecting soil fertility, to build soil fertility. What kind of fertility? This kind of fertility, the biological fertility with crop rotations, with cover crops, and association of activities, etc. The good news that for no-till system, we have this reality of money that was taken for the farmers to increase no-till system quality in this region. The black one is more money, the blue one is less money, but shows how is the distribution of money utilization, credit utilization to increase no-till system with quality in Brazil. That's the idea, and is running. It's going very well. So that's the presentation, and we are in this position. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Great presentation. And you know, we have a huge challenge because everybody thinks that conservation agriculture is only for big scales, for the lands from South America. And we have the conviction that it's not true. The conservation agriculture is for all scales. We need the adaptation for each region, for each situation. So today we have Bram Goaverts. It's a pleasure to have you here, Bram, and he's going to tell us about Plus Agro in Mexico.
Thank you very much, Pilu. It's an honor to be here, and especially I want to express my gratitude, but also highlight the importance of Aapresid and other farmer organizations. I hope the farmers present here are aware that you really have changed the world and that we need you to do it again. And that's part of what I want to present today. I also want to send my sincere thanks to my CIMMYT colleagues from all over the world that came here finally to the Latin American continent, so welcome here. And the presentation will reflect several learnings that are not mine, but that are thanks to the team that we have in Mexico. And finally, I want to highlight the presence of the representative of the Mexican government, Ingeniero Franco Avila, who is here to join this presentation. First of all, the context, and I think we saw a bit from it from the previous presenters, but I want to highlight a couple figures. If we project to 2050, we will have to increase by 70% the food calories to be able to feed 9.6 or 10 billion people. We have to do that while we reduce 24% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But the figure in the middle is the most important one. It is projected that by 2050, 28% of the global population will be directly or indirectly employed by agriculture. So if any young student was doubting if he or she should go into agriculture, don't doubt about it. It is the sector of the future. But that doesn't mean 28% of the population will be farmer. We will be working in agriculture. I know if we go a little bit further north, this slide is in denial, but I still want to highlight that by 2030, there will be a high impact that is projected through climate change on our main crops. It is projected that we will lose 12% of the maize production, 23% for rice, 13% for wheat, and 8% for other crops. Especially if we go to Central America, this is a report which is called Tortillas on the Roaster, or so maize is really getting hot. And if we project, there's clear spots, which are the red spots where we will lose production of maize, while maize is the crop, obviously, of Central America. We will have the yellow spots is where we can adapt, and the green spots is where maize can move in, where it is not there today. But in summary, these are the figures for Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala of the production of maize that we will lose if we keep on working with the same practices as we do today and on the same lands by 2020, and the economic value of that. If you look at the economic impact, it's presented here. Another very interesting figure is this one, which comes from my colleagues who work on wheat in the Yaqui Valley. Those of you that don't know where it is, that's in Mexico, and that's where the Green Revolution started. So this graph actually shows, plotted since 1979, when I was born, all the way down to today, the average yield of the Yaqui Valley. Now, the interesting point of the Yaqui Valley is it's the valley that receives 300,000 hectares of wheat, that receives as the first ones the new varieties that are coming out of the pipeline of CIMMYT and partners' efforts. What we did was we plotted the yields per year against the night temperature from December all the way to March. So just the average night temperature. And you can see here very interestingly, as when it gets hot, the yields drop. First conclusion. Second conclusion, a new variety came in, which is called Sirno, and we can see that the trend is exactly the same, but it's on a higher yield level. So that's what heat stress can do. But another conclusion is, if we don't find a variety that can do the same, we're back down here. And I'm not sure if today we have a variety that can do the same. We need continuous investment to that. Now, the previous speaker said we have had a lot of initiatives on sustainable development. So why is the needle not changing? And I think, and I'm convinced, it is because we keep on talking about agriculture. We need to translate agriculture into an economic value that goes beyond the agricultural sector. If I talk to you about climate change, you will just say, yes, that's what's happening, because you live it every day in the fields, because you know what agriculture is about. So we stand up and we went to talk about it to Lloyd's of London, which is the insurance company. And they said, agriculture what? Agriculture is not affecting my business. Until we could show that you can easily predict a scenario with a probability of 1 in 100, that a huge crisis, food crisis in wheat, bringing together several events that already happened, can actually have an effect of 10% of stock loss on the European stock market and 5% on the US stock market. We have been wondering, why haven't we worried more about sustainable development and environmental parameters? Why do they not have an economic value yet? And I started wondering about that, and the answer actually comes because we went to the moon too late. It was only in 1969 that humankind for the first time could go to the moon. And when they asked the astronauts, what was your biggest impression of being able to go to the moon? Surprisingly, they answered, it was when I turned around and I saw the Earth. Because it's back then that humankind realized that the Earth is very small and that it's finite. And it's based on that that we started to think maybe we need to change a little bit, because we have no other place to go, and it's really a small globe in the center of the world. In different languages, entonces, et alors, so what do we do with that? And I think people in the room here have answered that question first with this kind of graphs. This is the result of a long-term trial that we have in Mexico, and it shows in green conservation agriculture of maize throughout the years. It shows in blue what the farmer is doing in rain-fed conditions, and it shows in red if you do conservation agriculture the wrong way. Interesting yield differences, very convincing. Same for wheat. That's not enough. We need to embed those agronomic practices within a broader strategy. So let's jump to sustainable intensification strategies where we bring other elements to it. Well, that's not enough, because our activities are embedded in the nexus of energy, food, and water. We can optimize food, but maybe we lose the energy we need for the industry. We can optimize the industry, but then maybe we are losing water that we need to drink. Australia today is the only country that has made the scenarios towards the future on how to optimize those 3 components. And that it's several pathways, 40 different pathways, and only 4 of them actually optimize those 3 axes or those 3 components. What does that mean for Mexico, Argentina, Guatemala, India? I don't know. If we don't know, how can we take the right actions? So we need agri-food systems, not only to produce volume, but agri-food systems for nutrition, agri-food systems for natural resource management, and agri-food systems for national and international security, in which we bring together public and private sector, big and small farmers participating in functional food systems, and research and development connected to markets that generates nutrition, nature conservation, and national security. We know that one of the elements in the crisis of migration in Syria today was the fact that agricultural innovations did not arrive on time and embedded in the right system so that food prices would not go up. That is a huge responsibility for Aapresid and farmer organizations all the way down to public policy and national and international research organizations. We need to work on the different axes. I'm not going to repeat that. There's different pathways to transform and adapt from a farm level. But in the end, it comes down to what a well-known man once said. Let's take it to the farmer. Let's work with farmers and transform and catalyze innovations together with them in order to change the system. And it's those axes or that lemma that we started to implement thanks to the leadership of the Mexican government through investment from Masagro, and today, you have heard this morning, we're scaling that out through a direct intervention from the ProAgro program, where we will be promoting agricultural technologies and agronomic innovations, yes, with improved varieties of maize and wheat, but embedded in a system, which goes from the biodiversity all the way down to the farmer. So today, we are working in 40 different locations with research platforms that are CA-based platforms that are connected to over 500 farm modules, and that we want them to generate the impact in the field. So it's this system that is installed today that we will use to expand impacts through asistencia técnica or technical advice, where research, and it was one of the things the farmers highlighted in the previous talk, that research has to be embedded with the farm reality. I don't know if you know the program, but we asked 100 Mexican farmers, how would you make a drawing of a scientist? Several scientists here. It was not really flattering, you know? Skinny, very pale, very kind of stocky, very far away from farmer reality. We also asked 100 farmers, how would you make a drawing of a farm advisor? A technician, a farm advisor that comes to the field. And it wasn't very flattering either. And they especially said you never see his full body because he doesn't get out of the car. So the only thing you see is like his head through the window. Which is kind of an exaggeration, but it shows how things were disconnected. And if we want to make them work, we need to connect them. We need, through the efforts we do together, to go from transfer of technology, technology focus, a focus on CA, a structural focus and a focus of institutions with linear interactions, to brokering, to actor focus, what is the role of everybody in the system, to an intensification where we don't look at the tool. I don't care if it's organic agriculture or special agriculture or ecological agriculture or fantastic agriculture. What I care is what is the impact on the indicators we're looking for. Is it generated nutritious food? Is it reducing water footprint? Is it reducing trace gas emissions? Is it including small farmers? Is it generating a motor for economic development? That are the only questions that we need to answer. But for that, we need data. We have been saying, why are public policies not making the right decisions? I'm convinced every actor takes the right decision when he or she has access to the right information at the right time to inform the decision. We as agriculture have not been able to take advantage of the data that all those farmers out there have on their plot. So today, through Masagro in Mexico, we are harvesting through crowdsourcing over 36,000 farms with farm data. That data needs to be transformed from data into information, from information into decision-making, and from decision-making into decision-taking. It's no use to have data if you don't know what to do with it, and if you cannot translate it into a decision that the actor has to make on the field or in whatever other function he or she has. We're developing research for innovation that has to generate impact from farm machinery all the way down to network mapping. But especially, I think we need to activate our biggest force, which is the consumer. Farmers have to be able to communicate back to the consumer. Why would it not be possible for a consumer to go to a supermarket, take out his cell phone, scan the barcode, and the barcode says who produced the maize for the cornflakes that the consumer is going to eat the next morning? With what an impact on the environment, with what impact on the social justice in its country, etc., etc. Is that a faraway dream? No. We have today crowdsourced data. We have indicators. We can do it technologically. We just have to take the decision to do it. Part of that decision was taken by an initiative that complements what we're doing in Mexico through Masagro with Kellogg's. So we launched the first initiative where we will be working with farmers and trace it all the way back to the consumer on the package. 5 years of this system in Mexico has resulted in an increase of 94% compared to the regional of the maize yields in rain-fed areas, 67% of higher incomes, 3% of higher income for wheat, adaptation of sustainable technologies in over 1 million hectares, 300,000 farmers, smallholder farmers involved, to 320 certified extension workers, 100 young scientists, and over 40 different maize varieties developed. So I went a little bit over time, but I want to let you with one last message. In order to produce the sustainable food for the future, we have to start a new wave of transformation, and it has to start today. Because agriculture still is the main engine for development and growth towards prosperity and happiness. Maybe the real indicator we should use is to track all the Facebooks of people in the world and see how happy they are, to see if we're going into the right direction. Maybe that's the final SDG. As it is in agriculture where new and concrete opportunities are being generated. We need a new revolution, and if you don't know it, you're part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Bram. Great presentation also. Well, I have a problem with my glasses. And now we are going to share a video because the initiative of 4,000 from France wanted to be here, but they couldn't at the last moment. So they gave us a video, please.
Yes, we are waiting for the translator.
Okay. Meantime,
she's coming, she's coming.
Bueno, quiero saludarlos. Dado que no puedo estar presente, I wish to greet
disculpas,
you
por
all.
favor, porque no se escucha.
I wish to greet you all as I cannot be present at this 7th World Congress on Conservation Agriculture. After COP21 in Paris and COP22 in Marrakesh, the associations of soil conservation farmers have always been present, wishing to meet their commitment to give agricultural land, as well as forest land, a carbon storage capacity. This will become one of the most important issues. not only for COP21, but for the fight against climate change regarding greenhouse gas mitigation. Important challenges lie ahead of us. Apart from the main principles and the major challenges we have to face together, we must, at the same time, set up technical references, benchmarks of storage potential all over the world. And each of us must experiment on our own individual area, in our own country, in our place. Experimenting, evaluating, and sharing data will be the challenge of the years to come. An association like yours has a role to play in this challenge, which we need to address collectively. Scientists from around the world who joined you in Montpellier showed that they have already opened up new lines of research. The experience of farmers in their own farms and that of scientists who conduct research in their laboratories need to come together to define, as I said, the storage potential, but at the same time, and above all, to develop technical itineraries which, at the end of the day, will lead them towards high levels of agricultural production, thus enabling farmers to generate income and at the same time to play their role in carbon storage for agricultural soils. That is my message to do today. This is what I wished to convey to you in your meeting. I'm counting on you on this conference, on all the experts, all the engineers, all those attending this Congress, to continue working together to prepare, as I said, for the great choices for the future and to work for the planet, hence to work for mankind. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, we have the pleasure to listen to these initiatives and to have a world view by Amir. And we are participating as farmers, as association of farmers, as scientists, and as government in different initiatives all around the world, not only the 4%, also the Global Soil Partnership, for example. That are initiatives that we share the conviction to take care of soils and to take the conservation agriculture as a real and best tool in order to protect our soils for food security and also for climate change. The only thought about that we all share here, and it's our message from the 7th World Congress, is about to be together, because there are a lot of initiatives all around the world, but we need to be all together with the same mission and with the same plan on action, because we have to succeed all around the world, in each region, in each point of our planet. So that's the only way that for the next years we are going to be a planet for the next generations and also for quality of life for everybody. Thank you very much for everybody, and thanks, and see all of you in the afternoon.